Well, all right, Buck fans, welcome to finally a week 6 winning edition of the No Quarter Given podcast.
Woohoo!
I'm your host, Jason. We're with Peter Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Blake, finally get off the 2-game losing streak snide, sir.
Yeah, it seemed like forever there. We were not in the winning column, but now a little bit too close for comfort, but still a win is a win over the Atlanta Falcons. So it feels good, my friend.
There you go. Our No Quarter Given podcast is brought to you by Beef O'Brady's here in the Tampa Bay area at the corner of Bush Boulevard and Himes Avenue, as well as Hank's Barbecue and Home Slice Pizza Company. So appreciate the sponsors jumping on board and helping us out. But again, let's talk about our 21-15 victory over the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to have Paul Stewart's montage of the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up. We're also going to preview the Pittsburgh game here on Sunday afternoon up it's no longer Heinz Field. I don't even know what the name of the field is anymore, but it's up in Pittsburgh.
Go to buckpower.com to get that information.
And before we review the game, we got to give all our Buck fans a little shout out to our man Paul Stewart. Paul's been traveled over from England for the Atlanta game. He's been over here for about a week or so. We were fortunate enough to have dinner with him on Tuesday night following the Falcons game. Had a great sit down over at Bahama Breeze over in the Rocky Point area. For all you Buck fans that are in the Tampa Bay area, right over there on the Causeway, a great little dinner. Me, you, Peter Blake, Paul Stewart, and TJ Reeves told a lot of stories. Some can be repeated and many others can't.
That's it.
But we had a great night of dinner and a little entertainment. And
it's called Acrisure Stadium, I believe. Acrisure, Acrisure, Acrisure Stadium.
All right, I'm going to call it Heinz Field until I get corrected otherwise. And first and foremost, got to thank Paul. He hooked us up with some shirts, some Buck Power shirts. Yes. I'm wearing the T-shirt version on the video here, and Peter's wearing the golf shirt version that we both got.
Yes, the polo, the creamsicle.
Yeah, it looks great.
Thank you.
He gave us some merchandise, some stuff that we're going to give out at our next remote at Beats. We're going to be doing a remote on the Thursday night game for the Ravens here later this month. We're going to be over at Beefs on Bush and Himes for the pregame on that Thursday night. So put it on your calendar to come on out and check us out. We're going to be doing about an hour and a half pregame show. Probably even do a little halftime show as well. Maybe not a post game, but for sure a pregame and a halftime. We'll see how it goes. But
yeah, who knows? Yeah. Maybe I'll stay out there for post game unless they want to close. Maybe.
I don't think they'll close. They'll be open for the Thursday night or so. But again, we'll be out there Thursday the 20th. I think it's the 27th of October for the Ravens when they come a call in here to Raymond James Stadium. All right, Peter Blake, give me some general impressions from the 21-15 victory over the Falcons.
Well, like I said, a little bit too close for comfort. The Bucs, the majority of the game, I thought, dominated offensively and especially defensively, getting after Marcus Mariota, 5 sacks, stopping the run, and then all of a sudden, just to comment what Devin White was saying or echo those comments, they kind of got bored and they let the foot off the pedal. They let the Falcons get back into the game, and it was again a little bit too close, and then. Of course, it came down to some controversial calls with Grady
Jarrett.
Putting Tom Brady down, controversy there, giving the Falcons new life. But what people kind of missed was the play before when it was pass interference and the ref was completely blind to it, which would also be a first down and give the Bucs the ball at the 10-yard line. So a lot of people making too much about it at the end of the day with the illegal hit or 15 yards. The Bucs clearly dominated this game. It shouldn't have been that close, honestly.
No, you're right. It was a methodical beating. I mean, they were definitely in control for 3/4 of that game. Again, the fourth quarter, that's a good word Devin used. They did look a little bored on the last 2 drives. Again, you don't want that, but they were without Cordarrelle Patterson. They were without Kyle Pitts. And like I said, through 3/4, the Bucs pretty much shut down. It'd have been nice if it would have been 24-27 to nothing, and not 21 the way it ended up. But again, Brady played well. They threw the ball 52 times. He threw the ball for 351. A ton of checkdowns. The running backs, White and Leonard Fournette probably had 14 or 15 catches between. I mean, they were playing a deep zone. They weren't going to let us beat them over the top. And to Brady's credit, he got Cade Otton involved, 5 or 6 catches out of Otton, a bunch of catches out of the running backs, and a few catches, intermediate routes to Evans and Godwin.
Yeah, Evans definitely showed up, made some big catches. Talk about Leonard Fournette, 10 catches for 83 yards. I mean, that was kind of their running game at the end of the day. Still took some hits, but the offensive line did a good job of not having any sacks, not giving up any sacks, even to So, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be pretty satisfied besides the fourth quarter there where they let the Falcons into the game. And I almost felt like even when it was 13-0 at halftime, the Bucs left points out there on the board because they get shut down on fourth down. And that's a thing that's become, kind of worrisome, if you will, when they get down in the red zone or fourth down or third down. That offensive line needs to be more dominant, if you will, push the other guys around. We haven't seen that consistently enough. So I still feel like they could have scored more. It felt like they should have been up 20-0 or 27-0, and they weren't, and they let the Falcons hang out and hang into the game into the fourth quarter when the Falcons came storming back. Give credit to where credit is due.
And this is where you really see the absence of Ryan Jensen and Ali Marpet in the power running game, the third and fourth and shorts. Again, Gedeke and Hainsey are doing a pretty good job in pass protection, but in the known running downs, third and fourth and short, when you've got to get a yard or two, Jensen and Marpet missing on that left side, obviously combining with Donovan and Wirfs and Shaq Mason. This is where you really see, the youngster. And again, Hainsey's not the biggest guy in the world at center. So again, Jensen was always a nasty run blocker. Same with Ali Marpet. So this is kind of where you're seeing a little bit of that showing up in these short yardage situations.
And then on top of it, not having Gronkowski, we talked about it, not only as a pass catching threat, it was nice to see Cade Otton basically have a breakout game, but not having that inline blocking on the line, which helps out not only your run game, but also your pass protection. You're missing that. And Julio Jones, once again.
Let's talk Julio.
Yeah, a man on the milk carton.
Inactive again. From all indications from Todd Bowles post game and on Monday in the Monday press conference, they're going to take the long view here. I don't think you're going to see Julio for a couple more weeks minimum. I think they're going to, if they can get 5 or 6 games out of Julio second half of the season, great. We talked about it last week. You and I think from the waist down, he's pretty close to being done. He wants to do it. He's trying. It's not that he doesn't want to play. I just think physically his knees, I think his knees for the wear and tear playing 10, 12, 13 years, whatever it is catching up to him. And his one knee just can't, he just doesn't have the explosion that he once did.
No, you're exactly right. And that's why I think if Julio Jones is ineffective, largely ineffective, which he has been during this year, they're going to entertain signing an OBJ. I mean, it makes sense to me because you don't want to get into a situation where you're losing wide receivers and you're also depending on the likes of, I love Russell Gage, but Russell Gage is a third wide receiver. He's not a 1 or a 2. So one of those 1 or 2 goes down like a Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. You don't want to depend on him. You don't want to depend on a Scotty Miller or Jalen Darden. So to me, OBJ makes lots of sense. And like you said, we keep on going back to it. When does Gronk on line 2 happen? Because it needs to happen pretty soon. I love Cade Otton, but at the end of the day, Gronkowski makes this team that much better. In fact, so much better if you have him back. Just add both of those pieces to this offense, and I think you're cooking.
Yeah, it's been interesting that it's been very quiet on the Rob Gronkowski front the last month or so. You've not heard much, whether it's him or his agent. Again, who knows? We don't know. Does he have any interest in playing? Is he in any kind of physical shape? We don't know. But again, I think you'll know something one way or the other by Halloween. I think by the end of October, you'll know. He'll either make an announcement, say I'm going to play or not play, or the Bucs will sign him and give him another couple weeks to get. Again, it may not be middle of November that you see him if they do sign him, but I think by Halloween you'll hear something one way or the other regard to Gronkowski.
And right now, his favorite Halloween costume is a ghost because, like you said, he's been not around, and the story hasn't been there. And the only thing you've heard is he watched the Packer game. And I feel like if he watched that Packer game, he was like, come on. I mean, we got more than 12 points in this offense. So this offense is not necessarily been the best. And I get it. It's going to be different because of the offensive line changes and because of the injuries to that wide receiving room. But you got to think, when is that offense going to be fully dominant for the whole game? When is that defense going to be fully dominant for the whole game? And I almost feel like the Bucs, their best games are in front of them. Everybody's going to have to come together. You go back to that game, probably another thing that was kind of worrisome, as I use that word again, was the three corners that went out. You had Sean Murphy-Bunting go out with an injury, Carlton Davis, Mike Edwards. We talked about this in the offseason and how, it was disappointing last year where you didn't have all your defensive starters, especially in that back end. So what's the impact coming in with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and how many of those injuries start to linger on? You hope not many.
Yeah, and Logan Ryan's still out, and a key contributor back there, flexible guy in the secondary, Akeem Hicks. Hopefully he's getting close to being ready here in the next probably couple of weeks, maybe by the Baltimore game, hopefully. Again, you got two more winnable games here, at Pittsburgh, at Carolina. The turmoil in Carolina with Matt Rule getting fired, so they're a dumpster fire. P.J. Walker is going to be the quarterback for the foreseeable future with Baker Mayfield hurt, so there's some opportunity to get healthy in the schedule here these next 2 weeks for sure. You're facing a rookie quarterback in Pickett in Pittsburgh, which we'll get to the Pittsburgh preview in a little bit. But again, if the Bucs can just gradually get a little healthier offensively, again, get a little more rhythm on offense, and again, get that running game totaled up. Because again, not that Brady can't do it, but you don't necessarily want Brady throwing it 52 times.
No, you don't. No, you're exactly right. You don't. You want to be more balanced on offense, and that comes down to your line. And again, your line hasn't done a consistent enough job to open up those holes, especially on those short situations when they're manageable downs. 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, you expect to get that first down, especially if you're running the ball. And if you're not getting it and you're getting stuck on 4th down, that's going to come back to haunt you. And it nearly did against Atlanta.
All right, so Peter Blake, tell me about all right, so before we get to Paul Stewart here, we're going to get to Paul in just a minute with his Pittsburgh Steelers montage. Just give me a thought through 5 games. Anything, anywhere you want to go as far as coaching staff, scheme. Give me a thought or two that you like and maybe you don't like through 5 weeks.
I'm disappointed that you don't have more points on the board. I'm disappointed that when you get into the red zone, it's stalled out. Is that injuries? Is that all the new faces? But I feel like I'm an eternal optimist. You have to be in order to be a Bucs fan, right? That it'll eventually get better. Everybody will come together, and of course, you'll get healthy. And if you do that, I think this team is going to be, a team to be reckoned with.
All right, we're going to be back in just a few minutes. Paul Stewart's going to give you a great montage of his audio and video history of the Buccaneers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not a lot of matchups over the years. We've really not played the Steelers a ton in the last, since 1976. So, but Paul will give you all the details, all the great moments in that series. And again, back from the glory days of the 80s and the 90s and all that. So you will enjoy that. Paul Stewart heading back to England on Thursday. So if you're listening to this later in the week, Paul's on his jet back to England. But again, Paul had a great visit here. I know he got to see a lot of people. I saw him posing with the Lombardi trophies at one Buck Place. He was at one of the big tailgate parties on Sunday. He was very involved in all things Buccaneers. He had a little beach time. He told me he went to the beach a few days. He went to a high school football game over in Clearwater. So we're very happy Paul had a great visit. And again, Paul does great work with buckpower.com. All your Buccaneer history, go to buckpower.com. And we will be back in just a few minutes after the Paul Stewart Pittsburgh Steelers montage. Enjoy. All right, Buck fans, we are back. Hope you enjoyed the montage with Paul Stewart. Some good Pittsburgh Steeler history. Were you you're probably a little young for this. Were you a fan of Bradshaw back in the glory days? You were pretty young back then when they were going through their glory days with the Steelers. But did you have any memories of a Pittsburgh Steeler Buccaneer matchup growing up?
Yes, I believe it was either Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. I'm driving home from Venice to see my nanny, which like grandma, I guess, on my dad's side. and we're traveling, we're listening in the car. Of course, it's blacked out because there were no games back then. I believe this is 1989, 1990. This is why you got to go to buckpower.com. It was actually snowing down in Venice. That's how cold it was. And I believe Gene was saying at the time, Pittsburgh usually would be at a disadvantage because they're wearing the black uniform. Well, they're actually warm because it was so cold out. So that was my memory, and I believe the Bucs lost that game too. They lost a lot of games back then. Another memory, I think, is a little bit earlier or a little bit later, if you will, would have to be Mike Glennon's first year with throwing it to Mike Evans to win the game. Was it Evans or was it Vincent Jackson? I believe it was Mike Evans to win a game at the time, and the Bucs at that point were winless. I remember that game, but not a lot of great memories when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bucs had a couple wins here and there. I always remember the paper champions one, right? With them coming out and saying the Bucs were paper champions. Steelers came in there and beat the Bucs. And again, that's the reason why you got to go to buckpower.com to look up this stuff, because Paul has it all covered. He's like an encyclopedia. It's crazy.
He was rattling off stuff at dinner the other night that was just insane. Quarterbacks, second-round draft picks from 1987 we were talking about. Who quarterbacked the Bucs during their a 4-game winning streak back in the early 90s, and he knew them all, man, with no reference, no looking stuff up. He popped it off. Just what an encyclopedia he is.
He really is. Do you remember the Mike Glennon game? Do you remember that game?
I vaguely. I remember, though. I don't know if this was 8 or 10 years ago, and it might have been the Mike Glennon game. I was actually at a home game before I relocated back to Tampa. I was in town, and I actually went to the Pittsburgh Steelers home game. This might have been 7-8 years ago, whatever it's been. But I cannot remember who.
This was on the road when they called it Heinz Field.
Okay, I was here. I went to the game here in Ray J. In the last 8 or 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it was that they hosted. And I think, Roethlisberger was the quarterback, and they had a good team that year. So I'm trying to, I don't remember who
the Bucs got crushed.
I think you're right. It was, and there were way more Steeler fans in the building than there were Buck fans. So it must have been a lean year. It might have been Dirk Cutter, Greg Schiano, that era during that 7, 8 years ago type deal. But yeah. A lot of terrible towels in Raymond James that Sunday.
Yes.
All right. Got an announcement to make for you, Peter Blake.
Okay, what's up?
Next week, No Quarter Given podcast. We will have another Buccaneer great is going to be joining us. And you know what part of the game I like, right? What's the part of the game I like?
Kicking?
The kicking game, baby. We're bringing back a Buck player who played during some of the lean years, and he was here during a couple of the really good years of Tony Dungy. One Michael, ¿Cómo está usted?
Very, very nice, Mr. Jason Powers. Yes, so we'll be definitely getting an opportunity to talk to him, getting his experiences on special teams. I know you're going to be soaking that all up because you love the talk kicking game, don't you?
And he had a really good Buck career. He kicked for the Bucs for, I think, 5 or 6 years. Yep. And like I said, he was at the end of the, Sam Weiss, and then he was there for Tony Dungy's couple years. He was there for the resurgence when Dungy got us to the playoffs. So we're going to talk about him, how he made the team, because he was an undrafted guy. Nobody had ever heard of Michael Husted. He came in, won the job, had a really productive career with the Buccaneers, went on to kick for the Falcons and a couple other teams, but had a really good 10, 11-year career. He's out in California these days, so we're going to talk to Michael and just see, reminisce about his Buck career and all that good stuff. So looking forward to that next week, No Quarter Given podcast.
Nice. Very cool.
Okay, let's get to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
1:00 game in Pittsburgh. You got Kenny Pickett starting for the Steelers. They got embarrassed last week up in Buffalo, which makes you a little nervous because when a team gets embarrassed, you usually get a really good effort the next week out of them. And they got buried by Buffalo. Pickett, the defense was pitiful. Pickett didn't play terrible, but the offense is just not very good. The offensive line is not very good. They've got some skill players. You got Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris. You got Claypool. You got George Pickens. Just your thoughts of the Pittsburgh Steelers through 5 weeks.
Well, I told you last week when we were at Beef O'Brady's and I gave you the 14 points. We got that bet, right? And I told
forgot.
Well, I reminded you here, and I'm going to remind you again, the reason why you win that game is because you have a rookie quarterback, and at the end of the day, this should be an absolute advantage for this Bucs defense. This defense should come out, blitz, get after him. I get it, they have skilled players, and we'll see what they do in the back end there. Of course, you talk about Deontay Johnson, of course, Chase Claypool and Pickens, but they should come out and really dominate this team because to me right now, the Steelers have the season's over with. When you start a rookie quarterback, basically your season's over with. And then furthermore, no TJ Watt you have to worry about on defense. The Bucs should win this game easily, even with it being on the road. We shall see what happens. But Jason Powers, you owe me some wings.
You are correct. I forgot about our little bet there. I did forget about that. But yeah, I mean, you're right. And here's the game that I want to see the defensive line dominate. This Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line is not very good. They are not very good. They have been giving up continuous pressure, not generating much in the running game. This is a game you cannot let Najee Harris get going because if you can let him get going, now the play action becomes a factor. They got good receivers. We have some injuries on the back end on the DB side. So again, offensively for me, get the lead back again like they did last week against Atlanta. The defense for Pittsburgh they're good. They're not great. They're okay. They're not great. Again, Minkah Fitzpatrick is their kind of big play guy in the secondary. He's always around the ball, but again, take care of the ball, establish a running game, get some momentum in the passing game going. They're not great in pass coverage. And to me, you're right. I mean, I just think this is a game. Again, don't let Kenny Pickett have any life. Don't let him get any confidence, especially if you're a little nicked up in the secondary as you're the Buccaneers.
And the advantage for the Steelers is, look, nobody's really seen a lot of Kenny Pickett, so maybe that is an advantage over the Bucs. And as we know, history shows the Bucs defense usually struggles versus a rookie quarterback, but they should not do that on Sunday versus this player, very young player. Todd Bowles, I think, will have something cooked up. And I tell you right now, offensively, if you're going to bracket coverage to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, coming home from Penn State there. Maybe he has a big game. You saw some of the flashes of brilliance versus the Atlanta Falcons. It seems like he's starting to get healthy, knock on wood. So I think Chris Godwin could have a big game because, at the end of the day, a defense is always going to try to shut down or take away on Mike Evans. If you give Mike Evans one-on-one coverage, he's going to absolutely kill you. So if you bracket coverage to him, who will step up? Will it be Gage? Will it be Godwin? My money is on Godwin.
And if you watch the Buffalo game last week against Pittsburgh, they gave up some huge plays, 98-yard touchdown, like a 70-yard touchdown to Gabe Davis. So there's some gaps in that secondary that you can do with some play design to get those one-on-one matchups with Evans on those safeties and or Godwin, on those weaker components of the Pittsburgh defense. And again, no J.J. Watt. You do have Cam Hayward's a good player. You got to know where he's at. But again, the Buccaneers ought to be able to move the ball. Pittsburgh's defense is not as vaunted as they once were. And again, the only thing that makes me nervous is they got blown out so bad last week. You're going to get an inspired effort out of Pittsburgh in their own building. So give me a prediction, Peter Blake.
Well, I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win 31-10. This should be a cakewalk. It should be a blowout. I get it. Mike Tomlin is going to get the best out of his players, but at the end of the day, it's about talent. And the Steelers don't have as much talent as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This should be a win going away for Tom Brady and that offense.
I'll go 34-17. I'm with you. I think the Bucs are clearly the better team here. Again, this is Brady, and Brady's had some success in Pittsburgh. With all his New England days, so he's not going to be unfamiliar with the Heinz Field atmosphere, all that stuff. Again, kicking game wise, it's a tough place to kick. So you'll hopefully Camarda and Suckup can do their job with the swirling winds in Pittsburgh. And typically in that stadium is not the easiest place to kick. So again, no stupid stuff in the kicking game. Hold on to the ball. Make Pittsburgh, if they're going to score, make them go 75, 80 yards. No short fields with turnovers.
And shut down the running game. Just make them one-dimensional. Put all the onus and pressure on that rookie quarterback. Make him throw off his back foot, get pressure on him, mess up his timing, and who knows, maybe you have some turnovers in this game also.
All right, Peter, tell me where they can find you online.
Yeah, it's the Evolution of Sports Talk Television live on Monday and Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock on I Love St. Pete, the Hub, and Amped Up Sports. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake. giving you something to think about. And seeing as we're under curfew, I don't want to wake up the neighbors. So bring your passion, bring your excitement, and just for Paul Stewart, bring your watch.
Yes, because you had a little timing. You had to delay a game last night on you, Peter Blake, at dinner.
Yeah,
you would have been penalized. You would have
Yeah.
been penalized for delay of game.
Yes, well, I had to work a little bit late, and tis the season to work overtime sometimes, and then it slips your mind. You look at your watch, and oh my gosh, I'm running late. So I had to get into the Mustang, drive as fast as I could without getting caught by cops, and I got
You
there.
made it.
Yeah,
And you look good in your orange polo. I like it. Buckpower.com, baby.
I'm proud to wear it. And like I said, go to buckpower.com for all your Buccaneer needs.
And like I said, remember, Buck fans, Thursday of the Baltimore game, we will be at Beef O'Brady's for a live pregame. So if you're not going to the game, stop by Beef's for all your Thursday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday night football action. Major League Baseball playoffs are going on right now. NBA starts in about a week, and the Lightning get going. So sports every night of the week, damn near, and no better place to go watch your favorite team play and eat some good wings. And Peter can destroy some wings over there at Beef's.
And I'm going to destroy some wings when you pay up on that bet. And I tell you right now, Major League Baseball players are not going on locally here for your Tampa Bay Rays, as they had a big old goose egg.
Rays have been eliminated. They have been eliminated. All right, Buck fans, appreciate the time. Remember, on Twitter, check out my podcast, Powers on Sports Podcast, Florida Football Insiders, obviously the No Quarter Given. You can go to my YouTube channel with all these video interviews. You can see Peter and I in our buckpower.com merchandise that we're wearing. Tell your friends about us, subscribe, rate, and review. We're on all the podcast platforms, and we will see you next week for another hopefully winning edition of the No Quarter Given podcast. Have a great week, Buck fans. Let's go.